Welcome to Social Situation, episode 17. We are joined today by the amazing Taylor Harrington. Taylor is a community experience designer, speaker, and the biggest cheerleader for spending more time doing what you love and making your big dreams happen. She's the head of community at Dreamers and Doers, a highly curated, award winning community and PR hype machine that amplifies extraordinary women entrepreneurs and leaders. Trevor, welcome back. It's been a while, it feels like. I always love the opportunity to catch up with you and see you. I'd love to hear what you've been up to since we last chatted.
Well, as our listeners will note, it's now the new year, and we're recording very close to the release of this episode, which is exciting. It's been great. I mean, it's been the holidays the last couple of weeks, so had holiday brain on. For me, it's getting through New Year's and Christmas, and in our family's case, and celebrating where we can to get through all of the different events that we have to do, which also includes a number of birthdays around this time of year too. So we're kind of spent a lot of time just catching up with folks, saying hello, spending time with family, doing some gift exchanges, and then yeah, celebrating the end of the year. 2025 was a roller coaster of a year in so many ways, and so it was good to just put a cap on that and look into the year ahead and what 2026 has in store. So it's been a fun time with friends and family the last few weeks, and that's really what's been top of mind for me, Erin. How about yourself?
Yeah, I love that. I'm so glad you had some time off or some downtime to spend with friends and family. I feel like it was a crazy year for a lot of people. I know folks are really excited to have 2025 in the rearview mirror and move into a new year. So I'm just wishing you all the best in this new year ahead. Yeah, the holiday season was fleeting as always. Like you look forward to it all year and then it just, goes by in the blink of an eye. My family and I moved into a new home. So that took up a lot of our holidays, which was really exciting. And then, like all the family things, all the events, of course, you just can't do it all, right? I wish there were more events and gatherings in, like, I don't know, October or February or March or times where you're like yearning for connection and just trying to do something different. But of course, everything's in the span of 2 weeks. So trying to pick and choose what we do. But it was great, very relaxing. And I'm really glad to be back with you today and really excited to have Taylor on the podcast. She is amazing.
I'm really looking forward to meeting Taylor and catching up. And I'm glad that you had a really nice holiday and a relaxing time. I hope that the whole family enjoyed all of the celebrations and getting together and just the restful time. It was a really it was definitely appreciated on my side. And I know you've got Parker, little Parker, and I just imagine well, now that Parker is in California, maybe not playing out in the snow, but enjoying the Christmas sunshine and the holiday sunshine that was around for that, and going into the new year as well. So, Erin, it's such a pleasure to reconnect. I'm looking forward to taking a quick break right now, and we'll be right back for an interview with Taylor Harrington of Dreamers and Doers.
Welcome to Social Situation. We are so excited to have Taylor Harrington with us today. Taylor is a community builder and connector who spends her days helping purpose driven people feel less alone and more supported in their work through Dreamers and Doers. Taylor, we're super grateful to have you here and can't wait to dive into the conversation. Welcome.
I can't wait. I love chit-chatting. So this is music to my ears.
Love it. Love it. Thank you. Well, for folks who might be new to you, just to kind of kick us off, I'd love if you could describe who you are and what you do at Dreamers and Doers.
Yeah, so I am someone who loves people. I adore talking to strangers. I love gathering my friends. And I feel very lucky. My grandma likes to say that I make friends for a living and help other people become friends. And I feel like that is very accurate to the work that I do at Dreamers and Doers and what I have spent my career doing. So yes, I'm a community builder. Outside of work, I love coloring. I love running in Central Park. And like I said, hosting like speak gatherings in my apartment, usually that have some sort of a crafty theme. So I just hosted a Shrinky Dink party recently, which really brought me back to like my childhood. I've hosted coloring in sweatpants parties. Yeah, I host a lot of themed gatherings. And what I do at Dreamers and Doers. So I started there about 10 months ago, which is crazy. It feels like yesterday, but also like I've been there forever. And it's an online community for women entrepreneurs that are all over the world. It started 11 years ago. So coming into this role was actually my first time I've had a job where someone else had the role before me, which was really interesting to like be gifted SOPs without being the one to like develop them for the first time. And yeah, there's such rich history there. It started as a brunch series here in New York. Originally, Geisha, the founder, and one of her female founder friends just getting brunch, chit-chatting about the realness of what it takes to build a business. And over time, more women started joining them for brunch. And eventually it got to the point where it was like, how do I actually, like, someone said to Geisha, hey, how do you make this a thing that doesn't disappear in my life? I need this so badly. And she was like, okay, maybe I should be pivoting my business to actually focus on building this into a community full time. So she's been running it for now, like I said, 11 years. And I feel so grateful that I get to scoop it up and add my own twists while also honoring what it all started out as. And she moved to Jackson, Wyoming, about 7 or 8 years ago now. So I'm the only teammate based in New York, which is where it all started. So I now get to host some in-person events for our members, which is a lot of fun. But the majority of our community runs on Circle, the platform. And so we have members from all over the world. And I would say the other component to the community, in addition to being a place where people have those real conversations about what it takes to build a business, is the PR Hype Machine, which is our dedicated editorial team, helps our members get featured in amazing PR opportunities. So whether they're getting featured in Business Insider or Forbes or Thrive Global, that they have all of these amazing opportunities to share their voice with the world. So part community, part PR Hype Machine is the overarching theme of what we do.
I love that, Taylor, and it sounds like such a natural fit for who you are personally and everything you've been working on. But what led you to Dreamers and Doers, and how did you know that this was the right fit and values aligned for who you are?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think so. I had been working on a company called Groove for about 4 years as the first full-time hire there, was a head of community and worked directly with the founders. And I loved it. Like it was so cool to build a community from the early days, as much as I've loved being able to see now from the flip side of what it's like to come into a community that's already been built. It was really cool to have my first full-time community role with something that I got to build from the ground up with the founders. And it was a global online co-working app for entrepreneurs. So again, was working with entrepreneurs from all over the world. But in this app, you were able to co-work in 50-minute sessions with other entrepreneurs and work towards your goals, whatever your goal was. So people became friends from all over the world. They didn't know each other ahead of time. They kept bumping into each other. We tried to recreate that feeling of being in a coffee shop or an office space where you keep seeing the same people. And so relationships were really built that way. And all to say that last winter, the founders decided to pivot the company and decide not to go into another round of venture-backed funding. And as they were sorting out what that next round looked like of what they would build on the side in addition to Groove, I just had this gut feeling it was not the right path for me anymore. I was like, I have built this thing for 4 years and I love it so, so much. And there's something, and it was even just like hard to name in that moment that I was like, this isn't it anymore. And so I raised my hand to be like, hey, I gotta go. And at the time, I didn't have anything lined up. I'd already had that itching feeling that there was like something inside. So I'd started applying for roles about a month before that, maybe 2 months before that. And I told the team on a Thursday, like, hey, I gotta go. I will help you guys in this transition as much as I can, but this isn't the thing that I can commit to long term anymore. And that Sunday, I got the email from Geisha that I got into the final round interview. So by Wednesday of the next week, I had had that final interview, and it all sort of, continued from there. So part of it was recognizing that this one chapter needed to close and another one needed to open. And the other part of it was recognizing that when I I basically the long story is I had attended this beautiful gathering, which is probably like a whole other story back last fall, where I had gotten to know the Dreamers Doers team in person as well as members. And so that's how I originally found out about what they were doing a bit more. And when I saw the job listing come up in December, I read it and was like, this is so me. Like, I could have written this myself. And it also felt like a sense of ease. There was a part of it that I felt like, wow, I could really nail this in a way that I really needed in that transition after having been at 4 years at a venture-backed firm on a really tiny team.
That sounds so serendipitous.
Yeah,
How this all kind of
I
came to
know.
be. I love that for you. And I love what you shared about realizing like your time at Groove had come to an end. And that, of course, you were so helpful and supportive as they kind of transitioned and you transitioned away. Because I think a lot of folks that are listening are also at periods of transition or thinking of their next move in the impact space or their move into the impact space. So it's really cool to kind of see your journey of how you made that happen. And I'm so glad that it's worked out. Like given what you did at Groove and what you're doing now, I see so many parallels from what I know.
Mhm.
And especially love what you said about like that feeling of connecting with people and feeling like you're bumping into each other, like that coffee shop mindset, because we are so global now, which is great in so many ways and all the opportunities virtually. But how do you recreate that sense of community that we probably had more so in the past when we all were working in person and kind of coming together in, closer quarters, if you will. So I love that that's been kind of a theme at Groove and I'm sure, at Dreamers and Doers now too. And I wanted to ask more kind of about like your professional background. So I know you work at the intersection of community and impact and storytelling and
Mhm.
all the things bringing people together. And I'm curious how your professional background has helped you to kind of build and nurture the communities that you're part of today.
Yeah, I'm the kind of person that loves to squeeze the most of every day and every week. And so, thinking about just like in college, how did I set myself up for the career I have today? I graduated with 7 different internships and 5 other jobs. Like, I really was like, if college is about going to class, I was like, nope, that's actually not how I'm going to do this. I'm going to do everything I can outside of the classroom, which also sometimes meant that I skipped class or I did like bare minimum and things. And I was still a great student, but I also felt like my journey was all about the things that I did outside of class. And so, all to say that I do feel like I got to dabble a lot in those 4 years and figure out what is it that I want to do. And so, by the time I graduated college, I had that clarity that it wasn't just what I wanted to do, it was who I wanted to do it with. And I had a mentor that had asked me a really great question my senior year of college, which was January of 2019, Taylor, what is it you want to do after college? And I gave him like the most wishy-washy answer in human history. I was like, well, Bob, people keep asking me as an advertising student, should I go agency side or should I go in-house? And I think that's a really dumb question because it just doesn't capture at all what I want to do. And he just paused and he asked me the question again and said, Taylor, what do you really want to do after college? And that's when I started to say, like, I want to build a career around working with entrepreneurs. I was a part of a really special co-working space in college. And I was like, I want to build my career working with people like that, who make me think differently, who encourage me to do things differently, who think creatively, who are going against the status quo. Like, that's who I want to surround myself with. And it actually doesn't matter what exactly I'm doing. And that conversation was an unlock because he then said, have you ever heard of Seth Godin? And I said, is he an author? I'm not quite sure. And he was like, yeah. And he's like, I actually live in the building that he works in. And so he said, I know he's hiring someone on his team. It's the weirdest job description I've ever read in my life. There's like no clear description of what this person will actually do and if he would take a college senior. But I think, you should take a peek at it and I'll happily send him an email to recommend you. And one thing led to another. And I think that like whole journey and then starting to work with Seth while I was still in college and then coming on with him full time afterwards is such a testament to like, yeah, this idea of trying to figure out who do you want to surround yourself with and that guiding your decisions rather than just what do you want to do. And that was the first decision to get myself into this career that has been all about being in community with entrepreneurs. That's what every role has been about. So yeah, while that job title was technically director of digital marketing and I was doing marketing with Seth and that looked like a whole bunch of things, it evolved because there was a community component to the workshops that he was creating based on his books. And it felt like a very natural transition about 2-ish years later when I was looking at community roles, had heard community was something that people could have in their job title. Like, what does that look like for me to then transition into that? And the marketing piece of things and how I think about how do people make decisions? What do they care about? Like, deeply, what do they care about as a human? That type of stuff fascinates me. And I think that's what makes me a good copywriter. The type of person who can write a really great email to prep people to attend an in-person event or to help a member who's going through something hard. And so I think that marketing and community component really have gone hand in hand throughout my career.
That's amazing. Again, serendipitous. Like I love
I
how these things
know.
have like come to be. And obviously it's a testament to your passion, your hard work, and your diligence. And you're taking advantage of all the things in college. I feel like if you can graduate, feeling like you've obviously done well in class, but also taken advantage of all of the opportunities out there, then it's, definitely such a win and such a like kind of step forward into your career. If you're already doing the internships and doing the jobs in college, you've really set yourself up for success with that experience. But I want to take a step back for a second because as you've spoken, like I obviously know you're so passionate about community, but you also have that community builder, leader skill set like that you are so experienced in and trained in and passionate about. And I'm curious, like thinking back to like much younger Taylor, child Taylor, if you will, like
Mm.
where did this passion for community stem from? Maybe even like pre-college. Have you always
Oh, totally.
been, yeah, like interested in bringing people together? Were you like the one at recess, like, I don't know, bringing people together on the monkey bars? Like, where did this stem from? If there was, a specific like moment or experience or period in time, I'm just so curious because I know this is such a big part of who you are, not just in your career, but as you said, in your whole life. So, yeah, curious if
Hmm.
anything kind of comes up for you there.
Yeah. My parents would say that I was born like this. They're like, you popped out ready to just chit chat with people. And I think that, yeah, there are definitely a few specific moments. I think one that immediately comes to mind is I've always been fascinated about how to support people in one to many versus one to one. So I've always gravitated since a young age to having small friend groups rather than one-on-one relationships. And I can think about in second grade, we had this poetry night. My teacher was like really into writing. And what a gift as a second grader to have that be the thing that my teacher was so into because it's been a huge part of my career and what I love to do outside of work. So, yeah, I think about how on this poetry night in second grade, there I was at what is that, like 7 years old? And I'm on this podium sharing my poems that I've written and I'm so proud of in front of my parents, all of the other kids in my classes, their parents, and everyone got to bring a plus one. So like my friend Avery got to come to it, which was very sweet. And I just remember being on this podium at that age in the elementary school cafeteria sharing my poems, thinking like this is it. Like, I love this. I love sharing in this kind of a format where maybe something that I say that's, helped me or something that I've been through could help someone else. Why not share it? Like that's like that feeling was something that I had very young. Um, and I think over time, part of it is like what people tell you and the stories that they repeat back to you. And I think a lot of people have told me over time, I've got these gut feelings as I go up on stage, like getting scared, getting those butterflies. And for some reason, I just was born without feeling those feelings, at least not nearly as much as the average person. And so while I can totally sympathize with how scary that must feel, I wasn't born with that. I don't know what that feels like. I do know what it feels like to be nervous. Am I going to do a good job? Or like, am I going to convey the message that I've worked really hard to put together? But I don't know what the feeling feels like to get on a stage and feel scared of the stage and being in front of an audience. I would happily talk to 100,000 people tomorrow and just have no preparation and be like, wait, here I go. So I do think that's part of it is like that one to many has been something true since a young age. I would say the other part of it is I have always appreciated having meaningful conversations since a young age. My parents were very much like since I can remember, had very much been a big fan of family dinner and having real conversations about how our day actually was and creating a safe space around that. And at a young age, as I started to go to other friends' houses for sleepovers and have other conversations, I realized really early this wasn't how everyone's dinner table was set up and the conversations they were having over dinner. And so I do think that that sparked something at a young age of how can I ask better questions? How can I create more conversations around that, whether it's with my friends and with my friend groups or talking to like an adult. Like being in the grocery store and talking to the cash register, the person at the cash register was like such a thrill at a young age. Like I love talking to strangers. So I do think a lot of these things were planted young. And the fact that I've gotten to design a career around this, I think has just been so cool that there was clearly an unlock that happened at some point that I was like, oh, wait, I don't need to go into a traditional path. I can do something a bit different and I can center around what my career around what sometimes people call soft skills because they're real skills that are really important.
This is so amazing. I wish I knew child Taylor. Like incredible. When you said this is it, and when you were talking about being at the podium in second grade, I literally had chills. I'm like, wow, like so incredible at such a young age to have the feeling that you know what you're meant to do, that you've found your purpose at age 7, or you've had a
Well, I
feeling
will
that maybe
say,
that was coming. That's
yeah,
amazing.
like there were pieces of it that felt really alive and really real and true. And then I also think it was always this question of like, but this is different. There's something about this that isn't traditional that I had to figure out how does this fit into a job description? How does this fit into a job title that came on later? But I do, yes, I do agree that I feel really grateful that I did have a lot of clarity at a young age and that I had supportive parents and a supportive school system that like allowed me to kind of experiment with some of these things and be creative and that second grade teacher like hyping me up that like, hey, your poems are really good. You should be applying for, to get featured in this like kids newsletter or this kids, magazine with your poems. Like that type of stuff did make a difference in terms of encouragement to say, oh, there is something here.
Yeah, totally. And I think, we're always kind of thinking about who our audience is. And a lot of folks, too, as I said, are navigating transitions, but a lot of folks are also maybe breaking away from like the traditional job or like breaking away from the feelings of I must do this because society tells me to do so. So I'm really glad that you're sharing your story of pursuing a career that isn't the traditional one that kind of a lot of people have, but knowing like, no, I want to do something different and I'm going to like figure out how to pave the way, even if it's not linear, even if it's not easy, that you can do that. So thank you for sharing that. 'Cause I think that'll be really inspiring to our audience.
I think also talking about transitions, I think I have a lot of conversations with people in transitions, like you were just saying, especially entrepreneurs. And I think a lot of it comes back to those childhood stories. Like I'm so glad we went there because I think a lot of folks that I talk to who are having a hard time or they feel misaligned in the journey they've gone down so far is they aren't as connected to the things that they loved doing when they were young, the things that were super true about them before the world told them how they should act or what they should like or what they are good at, like those types of stories. And if we actually like go back to those things that were true to who we were when we were younger, I think there's a lot of unlock that happens in there of questioning how do I design a career that allows me to do some of those things that I naturally am good at, naturally enjoyed, naturally had fun doing. And so I find that a lot of conversations do go to that point when someone's feeling stuck of how do I sort of peel back the layers to get back to that who I am at my core? And am I too far down a path where my job, my role, the type of industry I'm in is not in sync with that? And then what? I just joined earlier this year. I just joined, I don't know if you two have heard of Susie Welch, but she has just recently come out with a book. She has been a professor at NYU for many, many years, and she has a whole course called Becoming You. And it's all about teaching business students to go back to the like root of who they are. And so she has a lot of values assessments and so she, works through this whole process with people over the course of a semester, but now has recently been doing 1 day and 3 day intensives. And in the process of kind of opening up this conversation at NYU in particular, they've decided to bring together sort of this like Avengers group of professors at NYU who are all thinking about what does it mean to have like a values aligned career, but then also other professionals that are thinking about this. And so they've created this board in this initiative called the Initiative on Purpose and Flourishing. And so I joined this board in earlier this year. And we've now had two board meetings, and it's so fascinating to see just the raw conversations and questions that come up when people are questioning who am I and what are my values today, and how is that aligned or misaligned with the actions I'm taking in my day to day or in my week. Because that like discrepancy of what that percentage is of how much you're living in alignment versus how much the truth is or what you want to be living in is, I think is very fascinating and very revealing. And I felt very seen by the values when I did my 1 day intensive, the values that showed up there for me, and noticing what that recalibration was like and talking about serendipity and like good moments to like be in, in that moment of transition. I happened to take that 1 day intensive this Saturday before I started my job at Dreamers and Doers. So it was a really good reflection time to be like, how do I dial up some of these values in my life as I go into this next chapter?
Right on. I love that, Taylor. And I was gonna say, like, when we know what happens on the other side of people who don't do the work of like rediscovering their purpose and like and the joy in who they are is like we
Yeah.
get these top-down hierarchical organizations where you have, one, sort of person in the emperor role who's dictating to everyone to implement, right? And when I see more of those organizations and I see like the failure, the toxicity, all of the things that comes out to the burden that they cause for the people that work for them, and just a lack of innovation, all of that. And you're talking about, being raised in this model where it's like that world actually never needs to even exist in the first place. We can have these bottom-up models where we're, talking to the people we're meant to be serving and having relationships and being in conversation with them so that we can respond and serve and react in the way that's true to who we are, who they are, and having true understanding, right? And it's funny because I see so many leaders, talking the talk. They know it's the right answer. Like they read Seth, they're reading Susie, right? Like, but they're not doing the thing. And to me, it's like so obvious when you get those discrepancies. And I wonder like how do you help people? This is a question that I'm struggling with right now, and I'm asking for advice in real time. How do we help people who want to do the work, who want to move the world in the direction of what we know is the best practice? They've got the language, but there's just it's actually the implementation maybe that they're struggling with, or the culture change within their particular organization or their life because they never sat at that dinner table where they could have those open conversations. How do we help those people make the shift?
It's a big question, Trevor. I would say, the first thing that comes up in my mind is I think a lot about hell yeses and hell nos. And when making decisions, I think it's very easy to make something feel like a really, really big decision instead of really small decisions and really small hell yeses and hell nos. On my first day in the working world, I was supposed to start in the office with Seth, and he was like, "Hey, I'm actually going to be at a conference that day. Any chance you want to go down to DC with me and go to the conference?" I was like, "Yes, I want to go to the conference. That sounds great." So I went there, and it was cool because, I got to experience what it was like seeing him on stage as, kind of a beginning of our working relationship after having freelanced with him for a couple of months. And anyways, one of the things he brought up in that talk, and I'll never forget it, was he talked a lot about what it was like to be a dot connector versus a dot collector. And the idea, and he had this great visual on on the screen on the stage, and this idea of like, I interpreted it as dot connectors really have this ability to figure out what is the next dot I'm working towards, and they're not worried about all of the dots in the line ahead, but they're working towards that next dot. How does it get me a little bit closer? And that next dot might be a decision, it might be a conversation, it might be an experience, it might be a shift in the job, it might be any hell yes or hell no, but it's that next thing in your journey. And so I think the more that we can make those things, especially as someone with ADHD who's like, I can't get overwhelmed by the one big thing. I got to get, a nice tidy list of like a bunch of little things that I can start checking off to feel that accomplishment. I think that would be my advice in those moments of transition is how can we make it feel a little bit smaller and inch our way towards that next dot versus making it feel like we need to collect all of them, connect all of them, and make this giant dot happen. So I don't know if that's helpful. You're on mute, Trevor.
Classic. Okay, everyone stamp your bingo card. I love that. It makes perfect sense. I mean, it makes me think about relationships and the importance of those. And so, like, as we're building our communities, some people can kind of. I mean, I see a lot of people like doing traditional networking where it's like more transactional. You're kind of like you're going to the event, you're handing out the business card. What can I do for you? What can you do for me? And like. And I see you, sort of saying like actually we can just like start with asking like so maybe more personal or broader questions than like, what we do for work, but like, what do we care about? What are our passions? What do you like to spend your time doing? Who do you love? That kind of stuff. And I think like as we're building those communities and we're finding those people who share those connections, it makes that work around connecting the dots easier when we have those value alignments. So how would you suggest people help find the people that are in their community and get away from the transactional nature of it all?
Yeah, well, it's funny because I'm going to talk about LinkedIn, which I think people typically think transactional networking when they think of LinkedIn. But I'm trying to redefine that. I feel like the last couple of years, LinkedIn has popped off in a different way than it had in the past. And I think with LinkedIn, it's fascinating how much you can learn about someone from their profile. Because yes, it's rooted in their work. And yet there are people out there who are really painting this beautiful picture of who they are as a human on their profiles. And if you can find some of those people, and I think part of this is identifying to yourself. Like if this were me, which I've done this process before many times, I would write out who is it I want to start surrounding myself with more? What are some of those qualities? And it's not like, oh, I want to be around Trevor more necessarily. Like it's not like individuals in particular, but it's what are they doing? What do they care about? And figuring out what are some of those keywords that maybe I could find them. And the first place I would start is who are some of those people that you already know? So if you're like, okay, I want to be surrounded by more community builders, go to your LinkedIn, go into the search bar, type in community, and then go look by first connections. Who has the title community in their, who has community in their title and start there. See who's commenting on their post. Who are they you can click to see what posts they're commenting on and start building this list of people who you are interested in being in a room with in theory, like in quotations, because we can create that virtual room through LinkedIn for you to keep bumping into them and being surrounded by them. There's this hack that I love on LinkedIn where if you go to the search bar and if you go ahead and tap enter and then you select posts, you can select whose posts you want to see. So let's say you built this list of 15 people that you want to be bumping into more, going back to those coffee chats and like or coffee shops and that feeling of bumping into these people again and again, wanting to collide with their ideas. If you build that list of let's say 15 people that you're like, I wish I could just be in a room with these people because these people seem to be doing something that I wish I was doing more of. Then if you click that post button, you'll see the option to go ahead and filter by just certain individuals' posts. So if you add in all 15 of those people, you can then save that link, that URL as a bookmark on your computer. And anytime you click it, you can see all of the posts from those people in the last week or the last month, depending on how you filter it. And so it becomes a bit of a curated feed for you to see what they're talking about. What ideas are they sharing? Who are they colliding with? Who's commenting on their posts? And engaging with them and building those relationships. Maybe you don't know these people at all. Maybe you only had that one community builder that you found through your first connections, but then that led you down a rabbit hole where you were like, oh my gosh, and this person works in ed tech in a really interesting way, or this person has started a nonprofit in a really interesting way. And you've collected these people. And that in my world, like that, I do this a lot. I have several lists like that. And it helps me deepen those relationships and maintain relationships with people who I met once and was like, oh, we don't live in the same city or we don't go to events in New York City together all the time. How can I continue to bump into them? And sure, this only really works for the folks that are active on LinkedIn. But if you're listening to this and you're not active on LinkedIn, you can still be an active commenter. You don't need to be posting all the time to adopt this. So that's one thing I would do is start surrounding yourself with these people virtually in an intentional way if you maybe can't do it in person in an intentional way as often.
That is such great advice. I love that hack. I think that's really going to help a lot of people to, yeah, curate their feeds and feel like they're in community with people that might not physically be where they are and people who have shared values and goals and passions. Yeah, Taylor, you're into
Well,
something. Yeah.
I think, and similar to what you asked, Erin,
Yeah.
you mentioned something about communities earlier. If you belong to
Yeah.
a community, so for example, one community that I'm a part of, and it's just so fun to be a part of because it's like my community that like I'm a member of as a community leader. It's nice to just be
Mhm.
held in someone else's community and be like, I actually just get to be an attendee at this event, or I get to like hang out in the chat and like not have to be the one facilitating it. But the community I'm thinking of is the Old Girls Club. And so inside of that community, a lot of people will post on their LinkedIn profile that they belong to it as an experience. So if you look at my profile, it says like, Old Girls Club member under my profile. And with the same hack I just mentioned, you can also not just sort by individual, but you can also sort by who else belongs to the same community and has that as one of their, like if you look up their company and you put in as their company that community, because it's being shown on their experience as if it's like a company, it'll pop up right there. So I also have like a dedicated feed where I get to not only interact with Old Girls Clubs members, but also like with Dreamers and Doers as a community leader. People see my members because all of them also post that on their profile, like in this curated feed where I'm not getting any other noise, just my members' posts is such a great way to engage with them in public. So yeah, that's another thing to do if you're listening to this and you're like, I belong to this community, I want to get more involved. These kind of people are my people. Maybe you're not quite like the ideal community member yet because you're like, I'm moving into a community role, or I want to move into a community role, or I want to move into an impact role, but I'm not quite there yet. This could be a way for you to interact with those people more and more. And it also takes off a little bit of pressure because you don't need to curate any list. You don't need to identify those people right now yourself, but actually seeing this curated feed of members that just have that on their profile helps you start create a list because you can see, oh, interesting. Erin posts a lot on LinkedIn. Maybe I'll add her to my list when I eventually build one of those.
Hmm. I love this. I think that's so great because I know for folks who are newer to LinkedIn, it can feel overwhelming. Like there's so many people. Where do I start? How
Hmm.
do I begin to build community? And I know that it can also deter some people, understandably, because it is such a monstrosity right now. So I really appreciate those tips. And Taylor, you've done such a beautiful job with your LinkedIn. I love reading your posts, and they're always like so fun and fresh and interesting and inspiring. And yeah, there's always
Thank
something like
you.
new to read. I love it. And I wanted to talk a little bit more about kind of the communities that you've built. So we've obviously, talked about the community that you're leading at Dreamers and Doers, prior roles, LinkedIn community, your friend community. I know you host a lot and bring
Mhm.
people together in community. And I'm really curious, like how maybe your definition of community has shifted as you've taken on new roles and responsibilities, or if it's meant something different for you at different points in your life.
Mm. Oh, this is a good question. I am very protective of my time and how I spend my time and who I spend it with. And I think it's recognizing that, like, I got to fill my own cup in addition to wanting to support others. And so I know it's funny that we've talked about college a couple of times on this episode, but going back to college, I remember distinctly feeling like I had different circles of friends. And I loved that. I loved the separation of that because we all lived in the same college town and it was so small. You get to bump into people. I went to Penn State, which is a huge school, in the grand scheme of things, but like it's still a small town. And so there wasn't a lot of places to hide. And I've always liked the ability to like hide to and in the sense that I could be alone somewhere, but more importantly, that I could talk to strangers and they didn't know anything about me and I didn't know anything about them. Like that fills my cup so much. And so I was always nervous in college to combine those circles because I had like my sorority friends, I had my entrepreneurship friends, I had my class friends, like I had all these different clubs I was a part of. And then I had this moment when I moved to New York where there's something different about, being in Manhattan where people have their apartments in all different areas or being in Brooklyn. And so there's less time where you're bumping into each other naturally because you're not in the same like proximity of the same block. And I recognized in order to spend my time well and to fill my cup, like I wanted to see all of my favorite people. And that was going to mean, in my definition of that, was like the circles are going to have to combine. Like I'm going to have to blend them. And so I hosted this like really epic. I've hosted this a themed party a few times, but I hope it's a flower bouquet making party. So everyone brings a bouquet of flowers, which is also nice as a host because all I gotta do is like set up some appetizers and maybe a little bit of wine and some seltzers, but like no one else is bringing the flowers. And then once everyone gets there, we cut them, to cut off the plastic and we put the flowers in rainbow order. And then eventually I facilitate everyone going up and grabbing their favorite flowers to go home with their own unique bouquet. So we all leave with something really special. And it's a really cool shared experience. And so that was the first time I ever did that. I thought to myself, this event is going to be better if there are more people there. So the circles are being combined. And I had like 25 girls at this event. And it was at my old apartment, I had a rooftop, a shared rooftop, and we just took it over. And it was epic. And it was such validation that I have like collected all of these amazing people in my life. And what a special thing that I get to now as an adult, like have them come together. In addition to like the New York friends I was meeting and the community builder friends I was meeting. And so I've meshed a lot of the people in my life a lot more over the last few years. And I think that I still am protective over like what kinds of relationships I have with people and having some of that separation. Like I'm not going to invite every single person into my apartment. Even if I love that person and they're amazing, I think there's still, some separation there. But I think I've gotten a lot looser about what it means in my own world of like bringing my friends together in a way that has been really rewarding. And I've also had a lot of fun doing super low lift things, like telling people, hey, I'm going to go for a walk in Central Park on this day. Totally fine if you can't come, but I'm going on a park with or without you, and I'm going to invite 15 friends and see who shows. And it's just magic. Like it was so special. I had like 9 friends there, and we all went on this great walk through the park. So like those types of things have been really fun. I think one other thing that I've leaned on a lot since moving to New York is the idea of, again, I think this is a theme since I was younger. I'm not a big one-on-one girl. I like being in groups. And so one of my favorite things to do is to pick an event that I already want to go to in the city. So if there's a cool book launch coming up at the Strand, and I'm like, oh, this author's so cool. I've, seen what they've been doing online. I'll sign up for the event and then I'll send it out like a blast out to some friends and be like, I'm going to this event with or without you. I'm totally comfortable going by myself, but it would be so fun if you could come. And then I have friends from different parts of my life that all show up and get to meet for the first time and hang out. So I've really leaned on combining the circles over the years, which is a huge shift in how I've structured my own relationships. And yeah, I think I don't even know if that even ties back to what you were saying about work originally, but that's how I've shifted my own personal community over the years.
No, I love it. I love hearing what community has meant for you over the years. And it's just so beautiful to see it showing up in different ways. And but that common thread of bringing people together. It might look different in a professional setting than a personal, but you're still blending your groups and you're bringing people together and you're taking that like I don't want to say risk, but like some
Well, and
people
that's the
keep these
thing.
groups separate and like are like, I
Yeah.
don't know. And I love that you've done that. I think that's so cool and so inspiring. And I think we should all try it because I think a lot of us, work to like purposefully like be like, it's work time, it's personal time, it's friend time, it's family time. But like what beauty arises when we meld our communities. That's so cool.
And it's like it, and I think, some people would say, oh my gosh, I would have so much FOMO if I found out 2 of my friends were hanging out without me. When I received a text that 4 of my friends that I had introduced at that original flower party went and got drinks without me, I was like, thank goodness, this is music to my ears. I love this. Like the fact that they all felt like they like found each other enough to be like, let's go ahead and exchange phone numbers and arrange to meet up at a different date. Like that is music to my ears. And I know not everyone would feel that way, but I was like, please, like go hang out without me. And I set that intention when they come over of like, I hope that you leave with new friends and like don't include me. I want you to build these relationships without me. Sure, you can invite me once in a while. Like, yeah, I'm down. But I think it's really nice to hear when friends continue to have relationships beyond that. And then they get to come back and see each other at the next gathering. But I do think, there's the fear part of it that you touched on. And it hasn't always felt easy. Like it was really scary to host that flower party and invite all those people from all those different circles. And within work, that's also felt scary in the past too. I think, with my last role at Groove, um, Groove, like I said, was this platform that, yes, I was, one of the teammates on it, building it from the early days, that I had friends be like, wait, I want to try this thing out. And it was interesting. Like, I want to say weird. Like, it was weird to have a role where like any of my friends could try out the thing I'm building and then meet my friends that I've built on the app, like the relationships I've built on the app, and also like the people who see me as a head of community. Like I had some of my high school friends and some of my college friends like try it out to like support me and see what this whole thing was. But then I had a couple friends who like loved it and like kept up with it. And so it was funny because then they knew all of these people I like co-worked with from all over the world, who saw me in a very different light. And then like these friends got to see me as like a head of community receiving my emails of like, this is the new app update and things like that. So it is funny. There have been times where that's felt a little uncomfortable and just and then like I think there have also been moments where I've stepped back and been like, but how cool that they like want to try out the thing that I've gotten to build and lead. Um, so yeah, I would say it's been a little bit of a roller coaster figuring that out. Even like within Dreamers and Doers right now, it's so interesting having people that I know personally be like, wait, maybe I should join this community. And I'm like, this is so cool that you want to. Like, I want you to. I think you would totally benefit from it. And it's a funny thing to have someone go from like being this friend that's not related to my work to suddenly like seeing me in this role. And there's an opportunity to like, yeah, be judged in a way that they aren't able to as a, as a friend that doesn't see me in that work. Because yeah, now they're seeing me as like a professional in a way that is interesting as a community leader. I don't think most jobs you're not going to get friends being able to like join the thing that you're building as much as something like this.
Well, and that's really interesting. It goes back to a point, we were talking about earlier about, getting started and finding your people and getting going. And I mean, like there's the task of who's in my community, what am I intentionally, building community around? And then, how do we even get started on, once I've got that community in place, what are we working on? How do I support this community that I've now assembled? And so what would your advice be for anybody that's sort of in those early stages and maybe like has their community together and knows who they're serving, but they're like, oh my goodness, like it's overwhelming. Like there's so many needs, there's so many ideas, there's so many directions we could go in. How do I choose?
Yeah, it's interesting. On the Dreamers and Doers team, we talk about figuring out what's most needle moving. So we have like a basically we have this initiatives board that lives inside of our sauna. So when we have an initiative, something that we want to say hell yes to, we put it in there and we basically judge it of like, should we be saying hell yes to this? Like this was an idea. Like, is it something that's going to move the needle? And we kind of go through this process of talking it out together. So Geisha, our founder and CEO, and I like will jam on different ideas of like, is this something we want to move forward with? And I think that that framing of needle moving has been very helpful to me because it forces me to be like, yeah, does this move the needle towards the goals that I've previously set and said I want to move towards? And Geisha's always been like, the other piece of it is sometimes it doesn't need to be needle moving. Sometimes it can be um, needle moving in the sense that like it can be really great for you. Like it can, maybe it reduces a lot of stress. She talks a lot about calmness. Like, is this adding more calmness to our operations or to the team? And in that case, maybe it's still worth saying yes to, even if it's not needle moving, like, oh my God, we're going to get like all these epic members that like are the best applications we've ever received. Like maybe that's not what this initiative is going to lead towards, but instead it's going to create a lot more calmness the next time we welcome in new members that I get 5 hours of my life back that week or whatever that might be. And then the other piece of it being like, sometimes we just want to say yes to things because they're super fun and they light us up. And so what are those, what are those next steps? And so I might take that framing when I think about like, your question of what am I moving towards? If I've started gathering these people, what things they're bringing, maybe they're bringing up feedback, maybe they're bringing up ideas, and you're like, which ones am I saying yes to? I think those three buckets are good ones to lean on to make that decision. But sometimes it's easier said than done, that's for sure.
Yeah, I love to hear how you and Geisha work together as well in terms of like the standpoint on moving the needle and then like what brings calmness and kind of finding that balance. It's really cool to see how, yeah, how you guys, make this whole thing run. And I guess speaking of calmness, you've set me up perfectly for what I was going to ask you because I'd love to hear what brings you calm. I know that as a community
Mm.
builder, it can be deeply rewarding and meaningful, but I'm sure also just like emotionally demanding and just hectic in all that you're doing and all that you're hosting and all the gathering of people and just all the many things on your plate. So I'd love to hear what brings you calm. What do you do to kind of like recharge and take a step back from your busy day?
So I've had a couple of secret hobbies over the years. I think, as someone whose role is so identity forward, in all of the roles that I've had, especially, at Groove and at Dreamers and Doers, I think that I want to lead by example by sharing that like I am a whole human and these are different parts to me. The way that I like introducing myself, that I enjoy coloring and I enjoy going for a run in Central Park. I like, all these different like things that, make me me, because I think that's just such a better way to approach sharing who we are, and getting to know each other. And I think that those sometimes like human things I often find are the ones like that bubble up to the surface and actually help us become friends and create those lasting relationships. And sometimes the weirdest ones are the ones where we say, wait, we have that in common. And that's what like leads to the best relationship. So with that, and with having such a like visible personal brand on LinkedIn, I feel like I've shared a lot of parts of myself over the years, um, by wanting to lead by example that other people can do that too. And it leads to these really beautiful relationships. And at the same time, I've had to protect that there are some things that I just do for myself and I don't tell other people about. Maybe my closest friends know about them. My college roommates know that I do them, or my fiance or my family. But like the whole world isn't learning that I have these like secret hobbies. And I'll give you one example, that I'm willing to share at this point, which is I had a podcast that was like my go-to podcast. It was my, if I needed a break, it was like I'm going on a walk and I'm listening to this podcast. Um, it's called Normal Gossip. Have you guys heard of it? No. Oh,
I
it's so
haven't. Do you
funny. Oh my
share,
gosh.
please?
Basically, the idea is that someone brings a morsel of gossip that is real, but it's like one of those stories that if you were at a dinner party and someone was like, "Oh my God, my grandma's crazy. This is what happened this weekend," and you just want to eat up like this like random like gossip that's like so not related to you, but it's so crazy that it happened not to you, but to this person that you sort of vaguely know that's like a friend of a friend. And so this whole like series is all about, each episode is a new story of gossip story that they dive into like the nitty gritty of and the back lore, and it's so funny. Anyways, I like needed this podcast to just be my thing. Like I was not going to be on LinkedIn being like, I'm the biggest fan of Normal Gossip, this is what I listen to in my free time, because I didn't want anyone to ask about it. I just wanted it to be my thing. But once I listened to every single episode, I then felt comfortable talking about it. So, so I think that it's nice as a community leader to like, for me, it's been very calming to like protect some of those things that make me me just for myself. There's one hobby that I've now, a few people have heard of, and this is where it gets kind of funny of like the circles intertwining. Like I have a couple of people that know me as a community leader, but then they're also my friend and they've been to my apartment. And so it's always funny when like some of these things are then revealed. And so I'm not going to reveal what this other secret hobby is right now because I don't feel ready yet. But it is funny when like I'll be at an event and someone's like, "Oh, have you been doing this lately?" And I'm like, my secret hobby is being revealed right now. So that's what happens when you combine your circles, is sometimes you can't keep the secrets hobbies so secret, but it is really nice to have some of them secret.
Thank you for sharing your secret with us,
Yeah, no
Taylor.
problem.
I many
It's
well,
a safe
hopefully many people.
space.
Yeah, safe. I mean, I don't know who's gonna listen, and but thank you for sharing it in that safety, and yeah, I mean, you're free for protecting your other secret hobbies. I mean, right on. I think, we all have the things that we need to recharge us and like bring us back to who we are, right? I mean, we talked about purpose and like, when in this wild world we're in, there are like always winds blowing that are trying to take us off track, right? And
Hmm.
so like I think like to reground ourselves, it's like it's important for us, for the work, for the communities that we're in. So I just want to like underline, everyone have your secret hobbies. I think that's an awesome idea. I do want to like change tack a little bit and maybe get
Yeah.
like a little bit sappy and talk about
Ooh.
legacy for a bit. So but I want to talk about your legacy as Taylor, but also what's the legacy of Dreamers and Doers that your community is working on, because you're leaving a collective legacy at the same time. So I just want to talk about how those two things fit together, your legacy and the legacy of Dreamers and Doers, and what is that leaving behind? What's the story of the legacy that you want people talking about in a long time from now?
Wow, big question for a Friday afternoon. I love it. Okay, I think my legacy is I really like the stamp I want to put on the world is I want people to look back and be like, and for me to look back, not just people, and say, I really helped people become friends. Like that, I think is just so at the core of what I believe in the world is helping people find their people. And I think, I go back to this phrase of like helping people become fast friends a lot. How do you help that speed to which someone becomes a true friend? There's a study out there, and I'm gonna botch this, but I'm gonna say it anyway. There's a study out there where I think it's 180 hours you have to spend with someone, quality time with someone, in order for them to like be considered a good friend. And in the world we live in today, like who are you investing 180 hours with that's a new friend? Like maybe you got those 180 hours when you were in college and you were like rooming with your best friend and or you live next door to someone, but you're not really investing 180 hours into every relationship that's new in your life. And so I think the more that I can help people get to that level of friendship without needing to invest all 180 hours, and there's like some thoughts I have about like what are the ingredients that help us get there for that type of a recipe. That's what I want to weave into my work. And I feel like it's the thing that I get lit up by the most is like, how do we help each other in that way? And in doing that, I think that when you become fast friends or when you become those deep friends, you're able to have those conversations like we talked about around the dinner table, where you can have those real, honest conversations about like, what are you dreaming about these days? Or what is that gap in the life you're living today and the life that you want to live? And like, how as your friend can I help you get there? How can I cheer you on? And so the more that I can create the ripple effects for people to feel like they can have those types of friendships and do the damn thing, whatever the damn thing means to them, like that is my dream, which I feel like is so in sync with the work that I do in Dreamers and Doers and the legacy that that community should have and wants to have is like it all started around those real conversations at a brunch table. And all these years later, 11 years later, we're still having those conversations, but this time you might be having them with someone that you've never met before. You're meeting from the other side of the world because it's a global community. And how do I help them get, to those layers deeper, like so much faster? And so I hope these women are able to carry that with them into their communities and into their friendships and into their client relationships so that they can not only like dream bolder themselves and dream bigger, but inspire their people to do that. Like that, yeah, those are the ripple effects that I want to create in the world.
I love that, Taylor. You're already doing that. So you are well on your way to creating that legacy, which, yeah, is very much in the works right now. I know so many people that just admire you and all the good you're putting out into the world and all the connections you're making. So thank you for all that you do.
Thank
Um,
you. And thanks for that
yeah.
great question.
We love talking about legacy here on the Social Situation podcast. It's so
Yeah.
fun for us to kind of, yeah, dream for a bit and like take a step back from where we are now and just like, yeah, like settle ourselves, like reframe, like really just take a moment to think about like what are we doing? Why are we doing it? And hopefully inspire those listening to also like take stock in all that they are doing and all the good they're putting out into the world and
Hmm.
understand the ripple effects it will have for hopefully generations to come. So and with that, before we wrap up, our time has gone so quickly, and this has been such a wonderful conversation. I wanted to see if there's anything else we haven't asked you that you'd love to share with our listeners.
I think the bow that I want to tie on this episode is that we get the choice to decide how we spend our time and who we spend it with. And if you're someone like me who has a very identity based role and job, or you're looking to dial up the visibility of who you are, whether it's on LinkedIn or somewhere else, I think that just that reminder that you get to make those decisions of what it is that you share about yourself or how you protect your time. And as someone who has like a hell of a lot of boundaries in order to be the person that I am, who shows up online, who has creative ideas and is able to show these different pieces of my life with the world, it means that like behind the scenes, I'm someone who has like, yeah, a lot of those boundaries and a lot of hell yeses and hell nos that are happening behind the scenes of those decisions. And so, yeah, I would just say that, we can't do it all. No one can. And it's up to us to protect our time and who we spend it with. So yeah, I guess that's what I would put a bow on.
That's a great reminder. Thank you for sharing
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And Taylor, if people want to become your fast friend or be in community with you, where can they find
Yes.
you? Where can
Oh,
they learn
totally.
more about your work and Dreamers and Doers?
Yeah. Well, LinkedIn is definitely the best way to find me, and I would be honored if you would include me on your list of people that you want to hang out with, and add to your circle on LinkedIn that you're engaging with. But yeah, pop into the comments of one of my posts. Like that's the best way to engage with me. I am not a huge fan of coffee chats, as we talked about on this episode. Not a big fan of one-on-ones. So I would much rather exchange a voice note back and forth than hop on a coffee chat. I use a really cool platform. It's called Beep. It's free and basically is this cute little voice note app where you can use it on your phone or on your desktop, where it literally says beep, and then I'm like, "Hey, it's Taylor. It's so nice to meet you." Blah 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 blah, and you can leave like a voice note for each other, a voicemail. Um, so if you want to send me a beep and then copy and paste it into a LinkedIn DM, I will happily read it there. My website is taylor-harrington.com, and you can find out more about Dreamers and Doers at dreamersdoers.com. And that's it. Thanks so much for having me. This has been so fun.
Thank you so much for joining us. I have to say, Taylor, we exchanged voice notes. It was so fun. I'm a huge fan as well. So everyone should, yeah, take advantage if that's a way they wish to get in touch. But
Yeah.
thank you so much for your time today. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate you sharing your story and inspiring all of us with your journey. And we just appreciate all the good you're doing in the world. So thank you. And we will be right back after this short break. Looking to make an impact but not sure where to start? Elevate Social Impact, a purpose driven consulting and coaching practice, helps companies develop their CSR strategies and embed a culture of giving back into their brand. And they guide individuals looking for fulfilling careers in social impact. Whether you're wanting to grow your company's give back efforts or find values alignment and make a greater difference through your work, Elevate Social Impact is excited to equip you with the knowledge, resources, and tools that you need to get started. Check out elevatesocialimpact.com today to learn more. Welcome back. It's time for us to share what's on our mind. Trevor, I'd love to hear what's been on your mind recently.
Well, aside from having lots of holiday downtime where we like watched a lot of we did watch a lot of movies. We watched some great TV shows, including Stranger Things, which I like binge watched throughout the month of December, having never watched any of it before, and then was able to complete it by the time um, the year came around. So please, no one do the math on how much time that took me to do over the month, but that was a big part. But that's not what I want to share today. I wanted to share because I've been on a few boards lately, and we've been having we've I've been having some meetings where like motions have been coming up. It's forced me to dust a book from my bookshelf, Robert's Rules of Order, which is a good book for anybody that's serving on a board of directors to have a sense around what the how decisions are made in groups and how organizations can come to agreements, make resolutions, how members have accountability within different governance systems. So this is like totally showing my governance geek side front and center. But yeah, I mean, for me, I've been kind of going through and yeah, reading about some of the different processes that are in place that have been around and established by as best practices by organizations and boards of directors around how do you get groups to make informalized decisions and what those best practices are. So it's definitely not an expected thing that's on my mind, but just something I want to share because I did dust it off my bookshelf, I think, for the first time in maybe like 10 years or so. So that's the excitement that's on my mind, Erin. It shows you how fun and exciting my year ahead is going to be. How about you, Erin? What's on your mind? I'm sure you've got something more exciting than that.
Yeah, no, I love that actually. I have served on multiple boards over the years, and I feel like I could have used that question. Is it specific to boards? I know you said it's how people kind of work together, come together, talking about leadership and decision making. Is it written for people on boards, or is it more like kind of high level and you can take it in whatever direction you would like?
So it's really it's like quite thick and quite
Yeah.
technocratic and specific and detailed. And so I think like it's kind of a how-to guide maybe
Hmm.
on governance. And so it
Hmm.
definitely gets into like board decisions, but it can also get into what are committees responsible for, or what
Hmm.
decisions can you make at a committee level? Can you form ad hoc or temporary committees?
Hmm.
And also like when are you accountable to a membership or to a broader group beyond just the directors themselves.
Hmm.
So it
That's
kind of goes into the
great.
details of all of those things and all sorts of specific scenarios and different points that can be raised officially. So when people find themselves on very formal boards of directors, or when there's disagreement and people aren't really sure how do I articulate what I'm trying to do, or how do I put my own motion forward? Robert's Rules of Order gives a process by which you can do that.
Hmm, that's great. I feel like boards should reference that more. And maybe the boards you've sat on have. I am not familiar with that book. It seems like a great resource. I'll have to check it out. Maybe read like little chapters at a time. It does look quite thick, but that's great to know that exists. Yeah, so what's been on my mind is really the new year since we are, at the top of the year here. And you and I were kind of talking about this a bit before we jumped on today. But I feel like there is always this pressure. There's this slowdown from, just before Christmas, that like wonky week between Christmas and New Year's and the few days after New Year's. And we're all just, reconnecting with friends and family and doing all the things, which is great. Watching the movies, eating the good food. But then it goes from this real nice, steady slowdown to this like pick up, go fast, hit the ground running like the first day back at work, which is actually today for a lot of people. And I just, I think me thinking about this, I'm not here to preach. I have no wisdom per se, but just a reminder to myself, to us, and to our audience to like be kind to yourself as you ease back into this year. There's a lot of societal pressure. There's a lot of pressure at our workplaces to go, 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 and to, you know, just get back to all those emails, hit those goals, first quarter. And I think we can be more intentional with our time if we allow ourselves to just like slow down and pause, because you and I were talking a little bit about goal setting before, and there's always like New Year's resolutions. And, we all feel that pressure to set them and reach them and just go full on in the first couple of months of the year. And I feel like that can be really stressful. That can be not helpful, actually. And it can just be really challenging going from such a slow period to such a quick pace. But I think we can really set thoughtful goals for ourselves when we just take moments of pause, when we stay in that vacation mindset if we can. Obviously, we all have the pressures of our workplaces and there are, mandates there. But whenever you have just a moment, like try to just take a step back and remember it's very early January. We have 12 months ahead of us to make all these dreams a reality, all these goals, all these resolutions a reality. So take something from your vacation, that pause, that respite, that peace, and try to pull that into the new year so that we don't end up super stressed out like I'm sure many of us were, in the last quarter of last year. So just something I've been thinking about, given the time of year we're in.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. Well, I mean, we we started off before this call, Erin, talking about like where we were at with, goals and resolutions and things. And it's like, yeah, I have not had time to get to any of that really, right? And like that's okay, like if things happen like later on or not at all, like that's got to be okay too, right? And I think what I'm just trying to spend my time doing is just saying like it's okay if we don't like get to it. It's okay if we don't have the reflection and the full introspection and the 360-degree view on everything, right? Like, and it's also okay if we don't have active goals, if like that's especially us listening to ourselves and we need to rest or we need to pause or we need to do something else.
Yeah, totally. And sometimes it takes time for our goals to come into our purview. Like I haven't goal set yet either because I'm not there yet. We just got into the new year. If I sat down to set goals right now, they probably wouldn't be the goals that I actually have for myself. I would just be pressuring myself. So sometimes we just need a little time. I mean, truthfully, I'm still working on holiday cards. It's been that kind of year with the move in the past few weeks. We'll call them New Year's cards now. So it's okay to take our time with things or be a little, behind, but really not behind, right? And I said that in air quotes for folks listening, like we're not behind. We're exactly where we are meant to be. Even if some people set their goals in, December 1st of last year, maybe that's not what we need right now. So, yeah, just some food for thought for our listeners, something I know, Trevor, you and I are thinking a lot about. So, and, with that, just wishing everyone a good start to the new year, healthy, happy, peaceful, restful, all the things, and just wishing everyone a year filled with all the joy and all the impact, because I know everyone listening is so committed to making our world a better place, which we just love here on Social Situation. Social Situation is co-hosted by me, Erin Mogel, and the incredible Trevor Loke. Editing is by Tristan Thompson. New episodes are released on the second Thursday of every month. Visit socialsituationpodcast.com to learn more or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.